Today, I'm going to fix a simple problem using 3D printing. My garbage can is designed so it can end up where the bottom is tilted against the wall, causing it to not be able to open and close as well as I want it to. Plus, it's scratching up the wall. Now, I could put something non-stick on the bottom to keep it from sliding around, but I'd rather come up with a more permanent solution to keep the bottom of the garbage can from going up against the wall. This way, even if it's moved, it'll still work. So I decided to make some spacers to put at the bottom of the garbage can to keep it from going up against the wall. So first, I measured how far away I wanted the garbage can from the trim at the bottom of the wall. Then I measured how wide and high the spacer should be when attached to the garbage can. To connect the spacers to the garbage can, I used 1/4-inch machine screws, so I measured those as well. Armed with all of the measurements, I opened up Fusion 360. As usual, I started with the new sketch, this time on the XY plane. I used straight lines to draw out most of the sketch, which will be the overhead view of the spacer. While sketching out the spacer, I used midpoint constraints to center and align the different components, and I set the dimensions to the measurements I took earlier. I used curves to close the shape on the outward-facing corners to avoid sharp edges that might damage my walls or trim. Once the sketch was done, I extruded it up 30 millimeters to make the 3D body. I added a 5 millimeter fillet to the top and bottom to round it out, again to avoid sharp corners. Next, I added a second sketch on the face that'll connect to the garbage can. Here, I drew 2 circles that match the diameter of the machine screws and set them to be an equal distance from the left and right edges. I also used an additional line and the midpoint constraint to perfectly center the circles horizontally. To finish the model, I used the push-pull tool to cut the screw holes into the spacer. Then, I exported the 3D model and sent it to my printer. After 9 hours of printing for each spacer, I was ready to install them onto my garbage can. To correctly mark where I should drill the screw holes into the garbage can, I used a piece of paper to make a template. I taped the paper to the spacer and then cut out the screw holes. Now, I can transfer this directly to the garbage can and know exactly where to drill. Before leaving my workshop, I used my drill to tap the screw holes into the spacers, so it'll be easier to screw in. I won't be able to use my drill later on, and I don't want to try forcing the screws in by hand. With that done, I measured how high I wanted to attach the spacers. My goal is to have the spacers hit the center of the trim on the wall, so I measured and then used a pencil to draw the center line of the spacer on the garbage can. Using the center line as a guide, I taped the template I made into place and marked the holes with a silver Sharpie. To drill the holes, I used a stepper bit to get a nice clean D-bird hole. I used masking tape to mark the depth I wanted, which will give me a 3/8 of an inch hole, which is slightly larger than the machine screw to give me a little wiggle room. Inside the garbage can, I used a large washer to help add strength to the connection and prevent the head of the machine screw from punching through the holes I drilled. Now everything is ready to screw the spacers onto the garbage can. I used a socket wrench to drive the machine screws and tighten everything up. Once I secured all 4 screws, it was time to test it out. The spacers keep the can right up against the trim and the top opens and closes freely without scraping the wall. Perfect! Well, it's all done, and aside from waiting for the prints to finish, it was quick, easy, and effective. So 3D printing helps solve a nuisance around the house. Well, that's it. Thanks for watching. While you're here, check out my other videos. See you next time.